would you say then that there's a faith-based argument for society being tilted slightly more towards individual liberty and the responsibility of the individual rather than collectivism?
Well, I believe that very strongly, because I believe that if you see a case of need, you have a duty to relieve it. You can't simply say, I've paid my taxes and it's the state's duty.
Mm-hmm.
You have a direct duty imposed on you by the requirement to love thy neighbour as thyself. And to, so I do think there is a considerable faith-based case for conservatism, yes.
It's interesting when I hear people saying about how socialist policies, perhaps this idea of the government taking care of people, is more compassionate in some way. But when you think about it, really, I guess what people are doing is they're abdicating their own personal responsibility to intervene in situations of need, and they're sort of saying, well, someone else will deal with that. That's if society can take care, I don't have to actually go and talk to these people or help them. It's society that should take care of these people. So I always thought maybe it's not, it doesn't sound to me like the more compassionate of the two, when you think about in that way.
No, I mean, I think that's right. I think that during the recent COVID crisis, people have become much more aware of that. I mean, people were ringing up neighbours, were trying to see if the old folk had everything. And I think there was a much greater assumption of personal responsibility, because everybody understood that the state was pressured, to within the last centimetre. It was so pressured. And therefore, it was all our responsibility. Now, my view is that is so all the time, not just when we have emergencies.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and when people criticise the amount of food banks that are popping up, I actually think that's almost a good sign. More food banks would be a great thing in society, not necessarily in terms of the need of them, but in terms of people taking care of each other in that way and giving people dignity instead of having, to rely on benefits and, being on unemployment, and you see, that's to me, it's a good sign that people are actually starting to actively take care of each other. And I always hear that as a negative brought up. There's so many more food banks, but yes, the need is terrible, but the fact that more of them exist now than perhaps did even during the recession, is that not maybe a good sign that we're starting to take more responsibility?
Yeah, I've got slightly mixed feelings towards food banks, because I think that once you create something, you create an incentive to to need it.
Okay.
And in fact, if you've got an adequate social security system running, no citizen should have to resort to food banks just to feed themselves. Now, there will always be those who, because of glitches in the system or whatever it is, do need that sort of help. But the fact that there are so many blossoming everywhere does raise question marks in my mind. On the other hand, I think, just as you've said, anything which we do for each other has got to be, by definition, a plus.
Yes. That's what I'm more getting at, rather than the need being a good thing. It's the fact that I see so many people willing to step up and help, where maybe perhaps in the past they may not have done so. And yes, it's this argument really of charity's role and the role of benefits and the government social security system.